Steadfast love and faithfulness will meet. Righteousness and peace will kiss each other. These are the words of the psalmist. And I enjoy hearing the echo of Isaiah in Mark, the way in which the gospel writer is reading scriptures as Jesus would know them, as John would have learned them, and reciting them to a new community, in a new time, with a new context. There's something potent about the words of Isaiah speaking to a people who live in occupation, who live in an experience of exile, who do not have the rights to move, to worship, to be, to live, to return to the land of their ancestors, to the land of their God. That's one of the important things to understand about biblical history and the history of the region that's described. The different lands had different gods, and to be in exile meant to be removed not only from your land, but from your God. This is why exile was such desolation, and why God in Isaiah, in these middle chapters in Isaiah, speaks comfort. God cries to the people. Did you notice that? It wasn't the people crying to God, it was God crying to the people, offering reassurance and love that in this experience of exile and being removed from your home, your place of being, that there is a word of comfort. There is a promise of what is to be. Mark is echoing Isaiah and putting John the Baptist in the midst of that. Because you see, Jerusalem existed in the first century in a time of occupation. The historic residents of that city weren't in control of it, but it existed under the occupation of the Roman Empire. 200 years-ish before the Gospel of Mark was written, the Maccabees fought a revolt against Rome and won. The little ones, the little guys, the underdog, won and was able to reconsecrate the temple that Rome had desecrated with their Roman eagles. Of course, reconsecration of a sacred space when it had been defiled required certain steps, certain rituals, and in that tradition, this is 150 years or so before the birth of Jesus, required 8 days of burning the lamps and saying prayers and rededicating the space. You know this story, right? This is the story of Hanukkah. It's an extra-biblical story. It happens in between testaments. But they didn't have enough oil for 8 days, and yet it lasted. This is the miracle. The miracle of light in the darkness. Sound familiar? We celebrate a miracle of light in the darkness at Christmas. We celebrated it last night when this room was filled with candlelight. We celebrate the light of God's righteousness, God's peace, and the way that they kiss. "23 years ago, when you start counting time in decades, you know that you're getting older. So about the time some of you were born, I was in the Middle East, walking the streets of Jerusalem, and came to realize that everything I knew about the history of that city and that place was a fraction of what the reality was, and that this city has been fought over generation after generation after century after eon. People have fought and died in this city again and again and again. It exists at the crossroads of 3 continents. It is a place where there is so much travel and commerce, and people who control the city control wealth. There is so much to fight over. I found it a fascinating place because as a white, Western, Christian woman, I had never been so much in the minority. And fascinatingly, that actually gave me more freedom of movement. I could move through the Jewish neighborhoods. I could move through the Arab communities in a way that neither of them could. I had Jewish students in my program who wanted to go to the Old City, and I said, sure, I'll give you a tour, because I had learned so much in the 2 weeks that I had lived there before they arrived. And I said, sure, take off the Star of David. I'll be happy to take you there. And one day I went with one of my friends who was an Arab law student through the Old City, and we were walking through the souk, the marketplace, and all of a sudden I lost Nasser. There was a crowd of people. It was easy to get separated, but I lost him somewhere. And so I started back to find him and met up with him, and I was asked, what happened? He said, oh, someone said something rude to you. I didn't know the language. My ignorance made me impervious. But he had stopped to defend me. This city has been fought over seemingly forever. But God's righteousness and peace will kiss. This is our vision. This is our dream. You've heard the aphorism, no justice, no peace. Without justice, there simply isn't peace. There's occupation, there's exile, there's oppression, but there's not peace. In our own hearts, if we don't have a sense of justice in the world, we don't know peace. In our own relationships, when we struggle with control, there's no peace. This vision in Isaiah of valleys lifted up and mountains brought low is what you hear in Mary's Magnificat, which is this prayer, this song of God's divine and holy and righteous justice. It isn't meek. It isn't mild. It is potent and powerful. And she, in singing the Magnificat, is a prophet. This is the Sunday in Advent. We honor peace. What do you think? Does this world need some more peace? Do you think maybe we have some work to do? In our own hearts, our own communities, in God's world? Let the fires of justice burn. The world is about to turn. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with Amen.